you need anything, just let me know. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, I muted you so that they can hear you.
They can hear me now. Good. Thank you. Hi. So my name is Summer Davidson Gomez. I'm from Penny Lake Center. Hey, come on in. No, you're good. You're good. Oh, we're good. You're good. My name is Summer. I'm from Penny Lake. I am not the best person to be giving this presentation. Because I am a cisgender woman, because I identify as a cisgender woman. I do not identify as non-binary. This morning during church, we were talking about identities. And it struck me that I really needed to put out here from the beginning that I'm not the best person to give this presentation. I do have experience. We do, through Penny Lane, we do support groups, we do education, we do different workshops on the LGBTQ plus community. I am a part of the LGBTQ plus community, so for what, that counts for what it counts for. So what I did today is I collected a bunch of videos so that we could see the non-binary experience through the lens of non-binary people. So what we're going to do today is go through the PowerPoint, and I put the links. It's not very polished. We'll do the best we can. Here we go. So it says non-binary is any gender expression that does not fall into the male-female category. Non-binary people may express a combination of masculine and feminine. A person can have an both masculine and feminine gender expression, or an identity between male and female, such as infancy. An agender person is someone who identifies as having no gender. People can also have multiple gender identities, such as bigender or pangender. Some people's gender expression varies. Non-binary people may also identify as transgender. Many non-binary people are androgynous and adopt gender norms, while other people express themselves as masculine or feminine. Okay, whoops. All right.
This looks like a very polished.
Oh, thank you. I feel like if I had embedded the videos, it would have been. But that would have, I couldn't. For various reasons, I couldn't. So I want to introduce the idea of a spectrum, because we tend to think of gender, or we were taught to think of gender as a binary, male, female. But in actuality, like most things in the world, gender falls on a spectrum. So one thing that's a spectrum is color. You've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and it can all be subdivided down into its various parts. So between the blue and the green, you've got turquoise, and then you've got turquoise, green, green. It can all be broken down to its different parts. And gender is the same way. Now, this is the diagram of sex and gender. And I feel like it's a good base, it's important for a base knowledge of what gender and gender non-binary means. So up at the top, you have sex assigned at birth. And that's based on anatomy, which is based on chromosomes and hormones. On the one side you have boy, on the other side you have girl. In that middle space, you'll see the term intersex. So some people are born with both the physical anatomy of both a boy and a girl. For that, we say they are intersex. The next line we have here is gender identity. And this is where we're going to get into the non-binary identity. The gender identity is your psychological sense of yourself. It doesn't have to do with anatomy. It has to do with the brain. On the one side we have man, on the other side we have woman. In that middle space, you'll see non-binary. Now the word binary, meaning this or that, so non-binary meaning outside of that binary. Now gender identity is interesting because it develops naturally. Kids learn to walk around the age of 1, they learn to talk around the age of 2. Gender identity develops naturally between the ages of 3 and 6. If you think back to any kids that you've watched grow up and develop, you'll notice that when they are 1 and 2, they don't seem to know or care what their gender is. They don't know or care what the gender of anybody else is. They just are. When they hit the age of 3, between 3 and 6, that's when they start identifying, I am a boy or I am a girl. You are a boy or you are a girl. You are a man or you are a woman. And that's because it's during that period of time when gender is developing. Now, the relationship between these first two lines, between sex assigned at birth and gender identity, that's where we get the transgender experience. So if somebody's sex assigned at birth is boy, and they identify as a woman, then they're a transgender woman. If somebody's sex assigned at birth is girl, and they identify as man, then they are a transgender man. Now there's a word for those people who are not transgender, and that word is cisgender, C-I-S, gender, cisgender. It comes from the Latin cis, meaning same side. So if your sex assigned at birth is on the same side as your gender identity, you are a cisgender person. So using myself as an example, my sex assigned at birth was girl. I identify as a woman. I'm a cisgender woman. The next aspect of this diagram is gender expression. And that's how you communicate gender. So there's a picture of a hat, because one of the ways that you communicate gender is by the clothing that we wear. On the one side we have masculine. I think of like a suit and tie as being very masculine. On the other side we have feminine. I think of like a dress or a skirt as being very feminine. And in that middle space we have androgynous. I think of like jeans and a t-shirt as being very androgynous. You can also think of like what Billy Porter wore to one of the award ceremonies, where it was like a suit top with a big skirt. That would be considered androgynous too. It's a mix of masculine and feminine. Now the next aspect of this diagram is sexual orientation. And that's who you are romantically or physically attracted to. On the one side, we have gay or lesbian, attracted to somebody of the same gender. On the other side, we have straight or heterosexual, attracted to somebody of the opposite gender. In that middle space, you'll see bisexual, pansexual, and asexual. Those are different variations. They're on the spectrum of sexual orientation. Sexual orientation also develops naturally. While gender identity develops between the ages of 3 and 6, sexual orientation develops between the ages of 5 and 25. It has a much broader range. Now, the last aspect we have here is sexual or dating behavior. So the emphasis here is on the behavior rather than the identity. And it doesn't always match sexual orientation. So just like gender expression doesn't always match gender identity, for example, I could put on a suit and tie and I would still be a woman. By the same token, sexual or dating behavior doesn't have to match sexual orientation. So, for example, I have a friend who's a woman, and she's married to a man. So if you were to make an assumption about her sexual orientation, you might assume she identifies as heterosexual. But if you were to ask her, she in fact identifies as pansexual. So what we're going to be talking about here, the non-binary experience, is in this aspect of gender identity. So it doesn't have anything to do with sex assigned at birth, meaning it doesn't have to do with anatomy. It doesn't have to have anything to do with gender expression. People can express all different ways. I can put on a dress one day, I can put on a suit and tie another day, and I'm still me. It doesn't affect my gender identity. Yes. So we have another video here.
There's a whole variety of experiences that people have that, like, hey, maybe I don't actually fit into the definition of, man or woman, and that there's something else.
Hi, I'm Danny, and I identify as non-binary.
I'm Lindsay, and I identify as non-binary.
My name is Feng. I identify as non-gendered person.
Let me try to get the volume up a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna. There we go. I'll just start it over and we'll see.
There's a whole variety of experiences that people have that cause them to question, like, hey, maybe I don't actually fit into the definition of, man or woman, and that there's something else.
Hi, I'm identify as non-binary.
I'm Lindsay, and I identify as non-binary.
My name is Feng. I identify as non-gendered person.
I'm Francois. I identify as genderqueer.
My name is James, and I identify as non-binary.
Non-binary is someone whose gender doesn't fall within the context of the binary that we set up in society.
I am not male, I'm not female, I'm somewhere floating around in there.
Non-binary means acknowledging a wider range of experience.
For me, it means that I'm not identified with any specific gender, like male, female, or other things.
It's part of a larger kind of goal of questioning these assumptions about gender and questioning why there only need to be two.
It gives me the freedom to express myself. If I wake up one day and I want to spike my hair and do punk rock makeup, I can do it.
Every couple of decades, some designer decides that men's shorts are, suddenly 5 inches shorter or 5 inches longer. In the 70s, if you look at what men were wearing, they were like Rockettes, like shorts were up to here, and now it's like, get it down to the knee. Non-binary is freedom from that whole game. It's like, I don't care what the men's department at Marshall suddenly has decided that like men need to wear I'm gonna go for what makes me feel more authentic.
I tend to say gender is dependent on context and point of view.
To me, it just makes me comfortable that I can just be this body that I have.
I identified as a cis gay male. Cisgender is when your gender identity aligns with the gender that you were assigned at birth based on your anatomy. I saw myself as a cis man and just thought, well, I paint my nails and I wear lipstick, but I'm a cis man. And I knew what genderqueer was and non-binary. I knew of them. And I was like, I support it, I love it, but it's over there. That's not me.
I identified as male before. I didn't really ever feel comfortable fitting into the masculine or male environments or just seeing myself as a man.
I've always had questions as a child. I always would put on my mother's makeup and her lipstick.
I identified quite a while before I came out to people.
I started identifying as non-binary when I was 17. I just knew that calling myself a woman and calling myself a girl did not feel accurate and did not feel good and did not feel like a home to me at that time in my life anymore.
Most people are still very confused about trans identity, non-binary, gender fluid.
Even though it's 2019, it's not something that everybody runs and like, oh, you're genderqueer, yay, hugs and kisses, we love you still.
The hardest thing about coming out at 17 is no one believes you. Everyone is like, wow, that's a really cute phase you're having.
Even when I'm saying what I identify with, people still have a specific imagination of what that means.
Most people are going to assume that you're one of two genders, a man or a woman, and so every single day you have to be correcting them and you have to be declaring that you're non-binary to pretty much every new person that you meet.
People often misgender me. Like the second I leave New York, I get called ma'am, like to my face.
A lot of times people get pronouns right twice, and then I find it's often the third time that people start slipping.
A lot of people think that we're transitioning for some reason.
Some people say, oh, so are you going through transition right now? And some people ask me, so do you still have a vagina?
Simplest way to ask about gender if you don't know someone is,
Hey friend, what are your pronouns? That's it.
A lot of us are very different. Some people are like, don't misgender me, and it's a big thing. And I understand that, really, I do.
Personally, I'm always very open and happy to talk to people about it.
I remember a few times I went on job interviews and I dressed like how I am. And I did very, very well in the first interview. And they're like, oh, you did so well. Just when you come next time, can you dress like a boy? It's especially challenging in dating.
No one really knows how to deal with you and whether they're allowed to be attracted to you, really.
Some people, they just say they want to date men.
the worst is whenever someone's like, well, yeah, but you have a penis, right? People will be very fixated with anatomical gender.
You can't be seen as heterosexual, you can't be seen as homosexual. And so when you try to date a girl, it's like, you're too feminine. You're not masculine enough. And you try to date a guy who's gay and he's like, you're not masculine enough, or you're too feminine or something. It's always something.
I think people's knowledge of this is definitely getting a lot better with time.
We're becoming more relatable. People are seeing us for who we are. And so I think that brings about this general air of acceptance.
I think the future of gender identity, hopefully, is one where we don't force the binary on everybody.
I think the future of gender identity is so much more like colorful and wide and different and like varied as we think it even can be.
I hope that the future will move towards more of individual expression rather than this mob mentality to follow the crowd to be like everybody else.
I definitely wish that we can all just pass through this phase of trying to categorize people and just take them as what they are.
Being able to reclaim our narratives, I think that's the next step, is that trans voices are the ones speaking for trans people and non-binary voices become the ones speaking for non-binary people.
Okay, so we want to make sure that we honor self-definition. So here we have, this slide shows a picture of a classroom. And there's a boys line and a girls line. And standing next to the teacher at the front is a little child wearing blue and pink stripes. And they're saying, sorry teacher, but where do the kids whose most salient identity isn't gender and instead self-identify as awesome? So this little kid is awesome, and we want to honor that. How do we do that? One way we can honor self-definition is by using the correct name. As this slide says, words have meaning and names have power. So a lot of both transgender and non-binary people, when they come out as transgender or non-binary, they'll take on a new name. And we need to respect that name. The name that they had previously now becomes known as their dead name, because that previous identity is dead, it's past, it's gone. So if we are to call somebody by their dead name, we are dead naming them, and it's very offensive. We want to make sure that we don't dead name somebody. We want to use the name that they want to be known as. Another way that we can honor self-definition is by using the correct pronouns. Now, pronouns are those little parts of speech that tell us who we're talking about. So she, her, hers, he, him, his. Those are on a gender binary. When we have plural, we say they, them, their. So if I was talking about a group of 100 people that went to the store, I would say they went to the store. I went with them, the bags are theirs. But the beauty of they, them, their is that it's also gender neutral. So some people use gender neutral they in the singular for their pronouns. So if I was talking about my friend Chris, who, side note, I asked if they would come today and they weren't able to come today. So that's why I'm here. If I was to go with my friend Chris to the store, I would say they went to the store. I went with them, the bags are theirs. So you use it in the same way you would when it's plural. There's also a category of pronouns known as neo-pronouns. Although they're not new, they tend to be blends of other pronouns. So one example that I have here on this slide is Z, Zir, Zirs. Z went to the store, I went with Zir, the bags are Zirs. There's a lot of other gender neutral pronouns, a lot more of these neo-pronouns. But when I put them all, or a bunch of them on this slide, it became really cluttered and it was confusing about what we were talking about. But you're much more likely to come across somebody who uses they. You will come across people who use they pronouns. Some people prefer to be referred to by their name rather than pronouns. So that's an option too for some people. Here's things not to say to a non-binary person.
Are you a boy or a girl?
Is it he or she or they or what?
That's so in right now to be like #gender fluid.
Where do you shop, in the men's or the women's section?
Or unisex?
Unisex! That word needs to die.
So what's going on down there?
None of your business.
I have had this many times.
It's this fixation to know. They have to know because what they see is unclear.
People don't even bother to ask me. They sort of forcibly tell me in the street, you've got this genitalia.
And they can just go along and walk past people in the street and just sort of tick off like
Vagina, penis.
vagina, penis,
Ooh, I
and
feel
like
less anxious now. Your genitals have nothing to do with your gender anyway.
Those two organs don't identify your whole life, and they shouldn't.
That's so trendy right now. #gender fluid.
I can see this person.
I mean, look at this coat.
I'm just like hip and down with the kids, you know.
We may have struggled to find the identity to understand who and what we are, but this isn't a fad.
Non-binary is like a term that people can use where I don't want to identify as male or female.
Don't identify with having a gender because I found it really restrictive.
I think the main issue just comes from the idea of people thinking that they can explain your gender back to you. So it's like, I'm non-binary. They're like, oh no, you're trans.
It's complex. I don't know. Some non-binary people identify as transgender, others don't.
I don't think it's more trendy now. I think our existence is actually being recognised.
Yeah, we're actually being spoken about.
It's reaching people who are going to be confused, like I was, and they're going to be upset and not know what's going on. Then they're going to see that word and hopefully it'll mean something to them.
So like you see someone and you can relate to it, and you're like, oh yeah, lol, that's me.
Yeah.
What toilet do you use?
I kind of find myself having a breakdown about that on the daily.
Whichever one I please.
Like the amount of times that I've gone into women's bathrooms and it's like, oh, this is the women's bathroom.
This woman in Mackie D's, McDonald's, like laughed at me and was like, I thought you were a man.
And I was literally dragged out of the club by them and was asked, do I carry a card to identify whether I am trans or I should be using their toilet?
I don't like to go in the male toilets at all because it's like I will be looked at, people think I'm a pervert.
I will use male toilets unless I feel unsafe.
I know that.
At the end of the day, a toilet is somewhere where you go and have a shit. So what does it matter what gender you are?
I saw this tweet once that was like, you know, you all have gender neutral bathrooms in your house.
But were you born a man or a woman?
I mean, what is a man and what is a woman?
You're assigned gender, you're assigned sex.
I wasn't born with a penis, so...
You can be a boy and you can like flowers.
They want to term all your behaviours as either like a feminine or a masculine.
You can be a girl and you can like cars.
Then determine which they think you're more strong in and put you in that box.
I know, what do you know? The comments on this video, there are only two genders. Oh, I identify as an attack helicopter.
That's not natural.
This isn't natural, let's be honest.
It literally is though. Like, what?
Is marriage natural? Like, have you ever seen two squirrels, like one in a suit, one in the right dress, like with a sparrow marrying them in the forest? No.
Non-binary identity has been existing since the beginning of time.
You see other societies and cultures out there and they don't have this very strict two-box rule.
In the Torah, there are like over 6 or 7 genders.
Like Native Americans had 4 genders.
I think it's India, there's a third gender.
Because there are so many examples in the animal kingdom. Snails are hermaphrodites.
Male seahorses give birth to their children.
Clownfish change sex halfway through their life.
Yeah.
Which is a Finding Nemo sequel I'd like to see.
Is it he or she?
I mean, thank you for asking.
2 options, he or she. Babes.
But there's he and she, they, their, ze, ze, fee as well.
It can be confusing for someone because they don't know what you're presenting as necessarily.
From about 6 feet away, they presume me to be female, and then they get closer and they're like, oh.
I went in one shop and they're like, okay, sir, yeah, we'll keep on to that, thank you, sir. I walk into another shop 10 minutes later and they're like, yes, madam, I can't fucking win.
If someone wants those pronouns used for them, then like, that's why it's important.
Any thought that I would be assumed female is like just the most uncomfortable feelings.
And also like people do get pronouns wrong sometimes, but just like correct yourself. And it's fine.
And people are like, oh no, but I actually like really struggle changing pronouns because I've known you for a really long time. I'm like, yeah, imagine what it must be like to actually be a non-binary person.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're struggling with grammar. I'm struggling with life.
Do you shop in the men's or women's section?
Both is good.
Both is good.
I don't understand why we're still saying this is the female piece of clothing or this is a male piece of clothing.
You have this whole store of all these wonderful things that you could open your mind to. Like
Sometimes I'll wear a crop top. Some days I would play with Barbies and wear a fairy dress. And sometimes I'll wear a suit. Other days I'd be in a Thunderbirds costume.
but I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. This is my sort of armor and my portrayal of how I feel inside.
I remember for my 12th birthday, I got Hulk boxer shorts off my mum, and I was
beautiful.
I was a happy little queer.
Are you gay? Yes.
Hell yeah!
Absolutely. As soon as they see somebody who's slightly more feminine portraying, it's instantly okay.
Sexuality, gender, completely different things.
It's not a thing where your identity and outward portraying image is connected to your sex or sexuality or anything like that.
You define the labels don't define you. So you can bring your own definition to whatever label.
On my forehead or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it on a fucking t-shirt.
But I don't get it!
Then learn! Like,
That's okay. It's really okay to not understand.
ain't hurting anyone.
You know, despite the fact that everybody's experience is different, it's just so refreshing to see meet somebody else whose pronouns are also they and their.
Then like actually having a label is like really, really important.
Yeah. Creates a lot of solidarity too.
Just a nice warm fuzzy feeling, isn't it?
I love queer people.
I love the queers.
Okay. And we have one more. Struggles of being non-conforming, non-binary, and Latino.
You don't know everything about me.
What is this place? Welcome to the home of fear and fright.
Today, more and more people are becoming open to identifying as non-binary and or non-conforming. It's a topic that gets a lot of people riled up, but also allows for the liberation of so many others. I, however, am not an expert, so I invited my good friend Luna, who knows what they're actually talking about.
What's up, beautiful people? My name is Luna, and I identify as non-binary and Mexican American. Some of you may be wondering, what does non-binary and non-conforming mean? So I invited some of my friends to talk about it. I identify as non-binary trans femme. Non-binary is essentially neither male or female, neither man or woman, beyond the binary meaning two choices. Trans feminine means that I was assigned male at birth and I'm transitioning to a feminine gender.
Hi everyone, my name is Nico Tiare. I go by they and she pronouns, and my dad is from Puerto Rico. I identify as a designated female at birth, shape-shifting girl, probably. And for me, that identity falls under non-binary because it's not exclusively female or male.
Hi, my name is Camilo Gonzalez Garcia, and I am from Cuba. I identify as two-spirit and non-binary.
My name is Joey Flamboyant because my name is Joey and I'm really flamboyant. My family's from El Salvador and Mexico. I identify as non-binary, gender fluid, all of the above.
My name's Carice Wild. My family was born in Tecate, Baja California. I identify as a man, a woman, non-binary, genderqueer. It's kind of all applies to me.
I think it's super important to ask other people's pronouns because you really just don't know. I think there's the assumption that like girl, boy, or non-binary has a certain look, but there really isn't. So you really have to ask and able to know.
The more we can ask, the more the culture will shift. And so it's more normal, just like how we ask people what their nicknames are.
Pronouns are important because it's how we interact with each other and it's how I can describe someone to someone else. We use them every single day, so why not use ones that fit, you know?
Not everyone has the same pronoun. Everyone is different and comes from a different walk of life.
I think pronouns are important because they help people be seen, and it makes them feel like they're in their body when people actually respect them.
First things we notice about somebody is their perceived gender. So when we talk to somebody, I'm saying I see you or I don't see you at all. And so walk through the world never being seen is like the worst nightmare. And so for me, gendering somebody correctly is saying I see you and I value you as who you are saying that you are.
The reason why some people may be less flexible about their pronouns is because that's very important to their transition. The reason why I'm more flexible is because I am coming from patience. I understand that I have to inform people and educate people about non-binary and non-conforming identities.
I used to get mad when people didn't get my pronouns correctly. And I think now at this point in my journey, I'm a lot more easygoing about it just because I feel like I know who I am and I understand that my proximity to cisness changes on a day-to-day basis depending on how I express myself. So if I'm being perceived as a cis man or a cis woman, that's access to safety. Depending on the moment, I'm a little bit more concerned about like the violence against trans women of color or homeless youth. So for me, pronouns are taking a little of a backseat right now in terms of my energy, but it just really depends on where a person's at.
The difference between non-binary and non-conforming is non-binary is a gender identity where someone may feel that they are neither male or female, neither man or woman. Non-conforming means your gender expression doesn't meet the typical standards of what is defined as masculine and feminine.
I think in our desire to create spaces for ourselves that really cement our identities and validate ourselves, we are forcing ourselves into boxes that don't really need to be there.
Stop trying to put people in boxes, period.
How I described it to my 5-year-old sister when I came out to her was just like how there is man, there is woman, there is another circle that hasn't been filled in yet, that doesn't have a name, and that's me.
Think of gender as colors. It's like if you're mixing yellow and blue and make green. The more you use, the more you can blend and you can create new creations.
I'm like you and your friend over there, put in one.
They are so accepting. It's only when they're older that they turn into
I love the word Latinx because it is a homage to the culture and history we've had that's been kind of pushed to the margins. With Latinx, we're able to honor all of the people that have been on the forefront of our history and as well as on the back, and all the people who've not conformed in our world and our society, and it reclaims that history.
I find so much power in the word Latinx because I am not just Latino or Latina, I am Latinx.
I much prefer the E at the end, Latine, instead of ella or él. I think it's much more accessible, especially to our mothers and our fathers and our grandfathers who hear this X thing and they're like, what the hell is that? You know what I mean?
I don't think it's impossible to find neutral pronouns in Spanish. To every will, there's a way.
Well, surprisingly enough, my family's actually been really accepting even though they are pretty religious.
My family was not the most supportive family when I came out, and it was really, really hard for me. And as somebody who is really choosing to love themselves, I choose to put up really strong boundaries with my biological family and really just celebrate myself from a distance.
I don't think my family has a lot of trouble with the way that I am because they saw me grow up. Sometimes they don't have the language for it, but they know who I am and they know my heart. And that's all that matters. Obviously, if I was transitioning fully, I would want them to consider my wishes of being a full she. But when you're so in the middle, I don't mind it. And I'm only speaking for myself.
My family did have difficulty using the word they, them for me because they're like, I feel like I'm talking about more than one person because I am more than just one pronoun.
Like to this day, really the only people that like really get it are like my younger sibling who's 8 and my grandma who, bless her heart, like immediately just started calling me what I wanted to be called and using, the pronouns that I wanted to be used. But the transition was very difficult on my family.
I want cis people to know that we exist, that we're here, we're your friends, we're your family, we're your coworkers. Maybe we just haven't come out to you yet, but it's because we're a little anxious and afraid.
I want cis people to know y'all created cisness. I want cis people to know gender has evolved over time. And I want cis people to know when they engage in ridiculous transphobic conversation that you're engaging in a culture where over 40% of homeless youth in America are queer or trans. And those are usually because they're kicked out from their families' homes. You're creating a culture when you speak. So speak as if you care about people.
Non-binary genders have existed since the dawn of time. Indigenous people of all cultures have had ideas outside of the traditional like male and female gender role that were celebrated. Tainos, my people, our two-spirit folks were like medicine people and healers and like amazing, wonderful people that were helpful. All this like, back in my day, we had 2 genders. Like, no, like before colonization, there was like 30. So like, cool it, Steve.
I wish that cis people would understand that it's not a trend and non-binary people have been here for as long as cis people have been here. We just now have words to put to that.
I hear this all the time. People think that like they, them pronouns are grammatically incorrect. When someone's walking down a street, hoodie on, you don't see their gender, and you're trying to say to your friend, like, oh, hey, that person has a cute sweater. You're not gonna say, he or she has a cute sweater. You're gonna be like, hey, that person over there. Use they, them in first person all the time. It's not just when talking about a group of people. It's not just when talking about more than one person. Like, we use it in a singular tense like all the time without even realizing. So it's not even as harsh of a transition as people say it is. It's definitely not grammatically incorrect.
I don't know why people have a problem with adding new words. If we can add muggle to the dictionary, then we can add Latinx, we can say they, them pronouns. Language is not set in stone.
I think that as a non-binary person, it is so fun and awesome because I get to explore who I am truly. I think that people are just accepting what is given to them and like they're put into a binary and they accept it. I get to deconstruct that on a daily basis. I get to be confused on a daily basis. So I think that it is super awesome that I get to have the opportunity to figure it out, where I don't think that a lot of people really get that opportunity. So I feel really just blessed to be non-binary.
I love dressing up and going to galas, or I like going camping and just being rugged, you know, and it's all very fitting to who I am.
The fun part of being non-binary for me is thinking of what I can do better this time as far as my look. And no matter where I go, people are either in awe or they're taking pictures, and sometimes it's not always with consent, but I know that at the end of the day, they're always gagging and I always bring it.
I mean, you can look like this when you're non-binary, like, come on.
It's not only okay to be non-binary, it's awesome to be non-binary. You're awesome just the way that you are. Definitely build a support system and find the people who are going to support you because it might go really, really awesome.
I would say find your family, find your friends, find people who are like you and learn.
You are valid, your feelings are valid, and whatever you're going through is valid.
One of the joys of being non-binary for me is not putting rules on myself. And what's the rush in trying to figure it out right now or put that label on yourself? If it feels good, do it.
It's honestly so much better. And it feels so relieving. That band-aid's just ripped right off.
At the end of the day, non-binary people and non-conforming people are just that, people. We deserve to be loved, respected, and seen. We've been here and we aren't going anywhere. And the future is fluid. Adios, mis papitas fritas.
Let me show you. Adios, mis papitas fritas.
Okay. Adios, mis papitas fritas.
Awesome! Beautiful!
Okay, wait, hold on.
So we can like give or take.
1 second.
I'm gonna put this in the video.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a really good choice with all these videos.
Oh, good. Thank you. We have, depending on what clock you use, we have a little bit of time and we're out of time. But questions, I also believe in the wisdom of the crowd. So if anybody has any wisdom that they can add to the conversation, we would appreciate that too. So, any questions? Yeah.
A request for collective wisdom.
Yes.
This is all absolutely wonderful. How do we get systemic gender bias toward binaryism to change? Our organization just filled out a questionnaire from a government agency and it asked for how many employees